All right. So I don't see Sandy. I know she's here somewhere. So yeah, this panel is around health of the helper, and I'll just say a word or two and let Sandy say a little bit about the topic before we introduce everyone. Um, it's interesting just sitting here listening and thinking about health of the helper. I feel like since we came on here yesterday, this is the introduction to the health of the helper and why it's important and what it does. Everyone who has shared, we can feel what they've seen, and we can feel the fact that given that they've seen something about who they are and how their experience works and what we all have within us, they cannot not help. They
Michael.
cannot not help by just being in their own health, by seeing what they've seen and being with others. And so when I think of health of the helper, it's like, wow, this is where it really, this is what really does the trick. Not what we know about addiction or what we do, all of that's great, but it's what we've deeply seen, because when we've seen this, we can't help but see it in others. So I just think it's really everything. Do you want to add to that,
Sorry,
Sandy?
that phone rang. Um, yeah, I almost feel like our panel is is almost redundant, or has everyone has been speaking about health of the helper, and of course, there's always more to say. But and I loved what Derek said: "Be the change you're looking to create." It really does start inside. So I'm anxious to hear what the panel has to say about that. You just keep getting a deeper and deeper understanding the more you look inside. So let's let them speak.
All right. So I think Amir is first, and we'll have kind of 7 to 9 minutes or so. I'll kind of roughly watch the clock, but just kind of keep an eye on it yourselves. So Amir,
All right.
you're back.
Um, I am back better than ever. So good to see everyone again. I'm going to take it a little bit differently. I'm going to share with you guys how I got my understanding way before I was introduced to the three principles. My mother is from Afghanistan. She had I believe, and my mom's going to correct me because I always mess it up, 11 brothers and 12 sisters or something like that. She had a huge family. Many of them were unfortunately killed during the Russian war, or they were extremely psychologically messed up from the war after it happened. And when we moved from, I was born in Iran and I came to the United States. I was about 8 years old, and I would see my mom do something uh, kind of funny. She would go into the living room, bawling her eyes out, and take a cassette and put it in the cassette player and start listening to Afghan music. And while she's crying, she's dancing in her Afghan themed dances. Right? It's beautiful. It's actually very beautifully choreographed. And one time I had the nerve to ask her, I said, Mom, what are you doing? What, like, I see you crying and then you put on music and, it made no sense to me. I was so young. And she said, this is the only time that I gather with all my brothers and sisters. And I didn't understand what that meant until I was older. You see, it finally hit me that what she was saying is that she was with the spirit of her siblings. Although they weren't there in physical form, they all came back when that feeling arose. It happened to be she would listen to music and she'd do her dance, and she was with her brothers and sisters. And so, from that point of view, I grew up all of a sudden. I got very, I took as I grew up, I became a very hardcore atheist, and I started actually doing debates with theologians, and I would go and do radio interviews with a gentleman by the name of Dan Barker and things like that. And I couldn't, for the life of me, figure out. I would read all the science about psychology, but why was I so messed up? I couldn't figure it out. I read all the top psychologists, and then it hit me with what my mother did. I didn't understand the spirit of psychology, right? And when I got to understand what Sid Banks was pointing to, that's what he was pointing to. That's why a gentleman that's got a 9th grade education, that happened to be a Scottish welder, can share that brilliance with people, not because of his science background, but because he understood that the way to people's psychology was through their heart, through their soul, right? Immanuel Kant said science is organized knowledge, but wisdom is organized life, right? Wisdom is what organizes us to see something new, not the science. And that's why when, my father, for example, when he picked up the cigarettes and it said may cause cancer, it never stopped him from smoking. No matter how many times you see a cigarette box and it has, some of them now have pictures in the UK. I saw some nasty pictures of like black hearts on the photos. I'm like, man, these are filthy, but people are not smoking anymore because of that. But I asked my father, why did you stop smoking? And he said, before you were born, I realized I never might be able to get up those flight of stairs if I keep smoking, and you're going to be born soon. And that insight changed him, right? And so from a young age, I got to see the value of insights, the value of the soul, the value of what makes us see the world differently. And, growing up and having this battle between, science versus spirituality, when people ask me now, like, what's your theological perspectives? I say, well, there's no such thing as God, yet he or she is everywhere. In other words, my scientific idea of God may not exist, but boy, do I feel that energy. And I've realized now that I don't have to necessarily have an explanation. And that's why when I go into my groups, when I talk to my groups, there are people that have their arms crossed and they're going to say, what are you going to show me that I don't already know? And my answer is nothing. Like, I have nothing to show you. I have nothing to offer you. If you're looking for scientific explanations of why you have what people say the disease, right? I don't buy that, but why you have that, or why your brain's functioning like this, and my 3-step approach, because truth doesn't come in systems. Truth shows up in experience, right? That's why systems have a tough time when we give people systems. They may change, but there's this deep change that happens, and I got to see that firsthand. I got to see it with my mother. I got to see it with the stories that my father shared. And of course, I've got to see that with the people in this group. Nobody in this group, the people that spoke, like Christopher and some of the people that have been in recovery, didn't say, man, it was this 3-step system that I did and all of a sudden I saw life. It's actually simpler than that, isn't it? They say, I don't know what happened, I just saw it. And you start to go, boy, these people are either very simple people or they're onto something, right? And I've realized that Sid Banks was onto something. The people that spent time with him were onto something. And the more time you spend with people like Sandra or Joe or some of the people that have got to spend time with some of the with Sid and some of the people from back in the days, is they don't come in with better systems. They actually dissolve it all, and their simplicity is what hits us with something. And so when I go to recovery centers, I'll never forget, this is what I'll end it with, is now remember, I don't have a background in psychology like many of you guys already know. I wasn't an addict or anything like that. I don't have any experience in this field. The person that ran the recovery center asked me, you need to come up with a curriculum. What are you going to talk about? And I somehow saw an etymology of the word curriculum. It comes from correre, right, which is to run or walk alongside of somebody. So I went, you know what? I don't know what I'm going to talk about, but I'll see it when I get there. In other words, I'll walk alongside of the people that are in the group. Because to be honest with you, I don't know what Amir will show up when I get there either. And that's what's amazing about the principles, is we all get to show up confused, lost, happy, excited, whatever, and we start from that experience. And the very next week, we get to come up with a new experience and start from that place. Why would we stop that? Why would I come up with a premeditated experience that may not show up when I get there? Isn't that a blessing? Isn't that a blessing that I get to show up with that experience? And so does everyone else in that room. And instead of coming in saying, I'm so sad, what should I do? People used to come in and say, I'm having an experience of sadness today. This is cool. Because we knew eventually, if people started to catch on, that experience will change. Amir, what do you do with your anxiety? I get anxious now. Like, no one ever told me that's okay. They said, normally it was a 3-step system, of how to get rid of your anxiety right away, which gave me more anxiety, right? Like now people will come into my room and I would ask them, how are you feeling today? I feel like shit. How are you feeling? I feel great. And I never went to fix them. I would just go, okay, cool. Okay, cool. And I'll never forget, there was one time this lady came up to me and said, you're the only group after I said I feel like shit, you didn't say, well, let's figure you out today. You said, okay, cool. And you went to the next person. And that gave me some validation that I'm okay to be in this experience. And folks, that's what this is all about. And that's what I've gotten to see. And that's what's been healing me, is that I'm just as sad, excited, anxious as the person sitting in a room. And that's why I always say this is an equal opportunity understanding. It doesn't matter what you've seen. It doesn't matter where you've been. You and I experience the world absolutely in the same way. And what a great starting point that is for us. And what a great way to end. And on that note, folks, welcome. I'm so blessed to be in humanity with all you guys and share these experiences moment to moment with you guys.
Thank you, Amir. That's beautiful.
Thank you, guys.
Becky, thank you, Amir. Becky was going to be next, but Becky, are you on? If you are, raise your hand because we haven't seen you. Raise your hand if you're here, Becky, if we're just missing you. But in the meantime, I think let's go on to Omar. He was going to be the next speaker. So let's go on to Omar.
Hey guys, can you hear me all right?
Yep.
Perfect. I really, like Amir, you blow my mind. I really just want to sit and listen to Amir. I really do. But when I'm gonna start. I'm Wilson. Everyone calls me Wilson. I'm Omar Wilson. I work with Beyond Recovery, and I'm also one of the founders of Beyond Truth, which we're trying to just start some free Ps in the community, especially with people that family members from prison. So while they're receiving free Ps in prison, we'll be working with the families. Hopefully that's a little vision of mine. But on Health for the Helper, it's I'm gonna take it back to before I knew about the free Ps, before I had the recognition. And I've always been a helper. As I look back, I've always been a helper. Always. I've always helped people out, even though I've done the wrong things for the right reasons, I claim. I've always helped people, but I kind of figured out I helped people to their perspective, if that makes sense. So if somebody was an alcoholic, I would try to speak to them like an alcoholic. Or if somebody was a drug abuser, I would try to speak to them in the category of a drug abuser. Or if somebody was a fighter or anything, I would try to help them in that category or in that way. And it was never any good. It was never any good. I never, even though it felt good to try and reach out and try and help, I never got the feeling that I helped them. So fast forward, I went to prison and I met lovely Mama J, and it was so funny. I'm trying to fast forward the story, but it was so funny because all you need sometimes is somebody to point or whisper, because you have the free Ps. We all have it. We all have it in us, but you don't recognize it. So you can have insights all you like, but without recognition, it kind of doesn't hold its position. You just let it slide and you don't realize what it is. And Mama J basically pointed over there, and I was like, what? And she pointed, and I looked, and I saw the free Ps. And the beauty of the free Ps is that I realized what's in me is in everybody else. So it's, for me, it's always a funny moment when I have realizations and I kick myself, and it's like, if what's in me is in everybody else, then all I need to do is speak to that. All I need to do is speak from truth and from love. It doesn't even matter about the situation, because the problem's never in the situation. And I always thought the problem was in the situation. And another thing Mama J made me realize is that love is always residual, always. So even if you help someone and that person goes off and you never see them again, me with my intellectual self, I was thinking, I have to know if that person's all right, if I've done enough, if if it helped. But that doesn't matter. It's just the feeling that you had at the time that matters. I helped this person. That's as far as you're concerned. But before the 3Ps, I used to intellectualize. Sorry, I can't get the words out. I'm excited. Sorry. I used to take everything intellectually and try to pinpoint that. But with the 3Ps, it's so beautiful. It's like sometimes I barely even speak, and the people I'm trying to help are blown away, and I then get blown away that they're blown away, and I try to find out what I said. I try to ask them, what did I say? What did I actually? And to me, that is beautiful, because I listened to Mavis yesterday, and Mavis, your voice is beautiful. And she was just talking about how beautiful we are as humans in the system, and it's all beautiful. And every time I get up in my head, to me, it's beautiful. It's just the system at work. Do you know what I mean? And when I believe into it, and then I see that I believed in, it's just beauty at work, and I love it. And it fills me up with the love, because I know that that's going on for somebody else. Anybody else that I want to help, that's going on for them. They're just up in their head. They believe in it. And now I don't have to buy into the situation, or I don't even have to know the situation, but I can just speak from love and truth. And whether they get it or not, the feeling I get from just trying to share that it's enough to make me carry on. Because I'm going to take it back to prison times, where I first met Mama J and my judgment took over. Like, she's just this lovely lady that's going to go home at the end of the day. So that's why she's smiling. The reason why we're not really smiling is because we're going to go back to ourselves. It's not pretty over there. So on our journey, getting to know Mama J and seeing how she turned up to the groups all smiley and energetic, and I realized that we was helping her. We was helping her. We was giving her the gas so she could drive. Do you know what I mean? Like, I can't explain it, but it's like, I know that we was helping her help us. Do you know what I mean? And we was also teaching her, and she was teaching us. And she never ever, and I feel like I get it from her, because she never ever took the stance as a teacher. And that's something I would never do. And I never do it. I never take the stance as a teacher, because I realize it don't matter who you are. Even my daughter, she's one. I could learn from you. I could learn from you. Even me trying to help you in a situation, I might have that situation myself. Or I might know somebody else that's going through that situation, and I might help you through it, and you might shine a light on me to help somebody else. And that's what I've seen. And I just feel like the mission that we're on, it fuels me anyway. It fuels my love. It fuels my love. If we speak to 1 million people and one person's touched, my job is done. But I really want to appreciate everybody for having me on this panel, and I love listening to you. I love it. Thank you.
Wow, thank you so much. We love listening to you too.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Omar.
Okay, let's go to Becky.
Hi, guys. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Hey, it's good to see everyone. Let me turn my sound. Let me. This is. I'm sorry we had some technical difficulties, so I apologize for the delay.
No worries. Are you okay to go now?
I'm okay to go now. I'm sorry I've missed all this, but yes, I'm okay to go now. I love what Omar just had to say. Thank you, Omar. I got to hear some of what you said. That was beautiful. Yes, thank you. Yes. And I apologize if there's noise here. Y'all understand we're kind of getting over the hurricane stuff here. So, but we've got class going on out here and everything. So there's a lot of stuff. So I hope that doesn't bleed through. But anyway, you know, I had prepared or tried to prepare a few minutes to speak, and you know, the only thing that I could really come up with that I would like to share with everyone is it made me start looking back at my years of experience in the counseling psychology field before I had an understanding of the principles. And when the subject being the health of the helper, I started realizing, can y'all hear me with that background noise going on? Okay. I realized how unhealthy I was. I started thinking about the time when I was doing crisis intervention for the community where I lived. Oh, and by the way, for those of you, I'm sorry, I didn't introduce myself. I'm Becky Nichols. I work at Gulf Breeze Recovery in Gulf Breeze, Florida. But anyway, I started thinking about working in this place in New Mexico where I ran the crisis intervention for the county, where I worked in the jails and the hospital and everything. And I took on so much responsibility in my mind, in my head, that I dropped down to 92 pounds at one time. And then I started thinking about later when I was working in the schools and everything too, how much responsibility I took on there and how I could actually see myself start off a school year looking and feeling healthy after a summer vacation. And then as the year progressed, how worn I would begin to look, how haggard I would be. And year after year, I just didn't realize, why is this doing this to me? You know, what's happening to me? Why is this institution, why is all this happening? And then over time, I started going on to a different path, a different journey before I got here with this understanding. And things started to begin to make sense. The light started coming on. And I began later to realize that I don't need to be in the field of psychological counseling anymore. And I started thinking, oh, it's got to be coaching. It has to be something different. There is an element that I'm missing here, that I am not able to get through to people or help in the way that I feel like I need to be helping. Something big is missing. And so I began a different path. I started becoming clearer on what I wanted. And it took time, but eventually I got back into a path of teaching again. Other things started happening, not like I had thought they should happen, but the way they just needed to happen for everything to come together. And I ended up here at Gulf Breeze Recovery. And I can remember Joe Bailey, Joe, telling me when I was struggling with the concept of the principles. And it's like, I know this stuff, it sounds familiar, but I'm not getting it yet. I'm not getting it. And he was very patient and kind and assuring me that it would come to me. And I remember him telling me, Becky, be present, get out of the way, and you let things flow and happen. And lo and behold, things started happening. And when I think about what keeps me grounded here, what keeps me coming back, is because for one, I don't feel the responsibility of everyone's health here. But I do feel a sense of gratitude that I get to show up in the lives of these people and help them awaken, gain an understanding, and just support them in realizing their health again and coming alive again. And it is a beautiful thing. And that is just one of the things. And I'm not going to say that there aren't times when I don't get tired, that I don't get frustrated. But during any given moment, any given time with these people, that I've met some of the most extraordinary people. And when you see that light go on, and you see the insight and the understanding, and everything just starts shifting, that's what keeps me coming back. That's what is so wonderful. And not only that, but the feeling in a facility that runs, and and I tell people all the time, I may sound sappy, but I really don't care. But being in a place that runs on so much love that's generated by the understanding, it is the most compassionate space to be with people and help them. And I loved what I'd heard before too, that I get and learn from other people as well as them hopefully learning and gaining understanding from me. So I guess that's pretty much it in a nutshell.
Beautiful. Thank you, Becky.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Becky.
Thank you. Thank you.
I love that your facility runs on love.
I do too. It makes it like walking home when you walk in the doors, So,
Oh, thank you.
thank you.
Okay, let's go back to Mavis.
Yes.
I don't want to follow anybody. This has just been, just been awesome. As I did this heavy duty planning for this, which meant to quit thinking about it, it occurred to me that one of the things that I had to learn early on is that there's such a thing as necessary selfishness. I was brought up, probably with a lot of us, that selfishness is just bad. You always have to put everybody else first, and that there's something just kind of saintly about that, and that's the way you should live. And there's a certain amount of truth to that, but there is a necessary selfishness. And for me, that's to put my state of mind before anybody else's. That if I take care of that, everything else is every little thing is gonna be all right. And I've had all kinds of little reminders of that. And I remember probably 35 years ago or something, Joe and I had made remember cassettes? We had made a lot of cassettes. And one day I was just sitting in my office, and the secretary buzzed me and said, "There's a guy on the phone from Australia and he wants to talk to you." And I thought, oh, well, yeah, that happens every day. And so, I just picked up the phone and said, "Hello, this is Mavis." And he says, "Are you the lady on the type?" And as soon as I figured out what he actually said, I said, "Well, I don't know, what tape do you have there?" And he told me the name of it, and I said, yep, that's me. And he said, "Well, I just really wanted to thank you because I've had sleep problems for years, and that tape really helped me with my sleep." And I said, "That tape doesn't have anything to do with sleep." And he said, "Oh, I don't know what's on the tape. I just put it on and I go to sleep." And that was kind of humbling, I thought it was brilliant, and it was just what I said that was really helpful to this guy. Nope, he had no idea what I said. And afterwards I thought, it just struck me funny that that what he had picked up was the feeling. And what I said made no difference to him at all. And I didn't really see the depth of that for a long time, but I sure enjoyed it. It was very humbling, and I enjoyed it. I have another story about, you know, at first I always thought I just had to be in this nice feeling all the time, and that's all I had to do. I just had to be in this nice feeling all the time. Well, several years ago, I did a 2-year project with kids in prison. And I went down to the prison about an hour south of where I live in Minnesota. And every Sunday morning, I spend Sundays down there teaching this to kids. And one day I had about 50 of them in a room. I don't know exactly why that happened. It was usually split up into 4 classes, but so I was going to start the class, and this one kid wanted to complain about something. I can't remember what it was, but so he complained a little bit, and I listened a little bit, and then we moved on. And then he wanted to complain about something else, and this went on 3 or 4 times. And finally, I snapped at him. Now, I don't mean I yelled at him or criticized him or humiliated him or anything, but I could feel the edge in what I said, and I just got so embarrassed because I just didn't want to treat anybody that way, but I certainly didn't want to treat these kids that way. And I said, oh man, I am so sorry. I didn't mean to snap at you. And I thought I was going to cry. I felt so bad. And he said, oh, that's all right. And I said, no, it isn't. It wasn't all right for me to do that. I just lost my way and got irritated and forgot to shut up. And he said that was all right again. And I apologized again. And he finally said, get over it. So I thought, oh, well, okay, then I guess I can do that. But after the class, I was just standing around talking to kids, and this one kid that I'd been there for probably 4 or 5 months, and there's this one enormous kid. He was kind of square. He was kind of built like a big sofa. And he was really powerful looking kid. And he kind of waddled over and he punched me on the arm. I thought my arm was going to break. And he said, that was a good group, G. They called me OG. I had no idea what that meant. I thought it meant old grandmother or something. I never thought about it much. I didn't find out till later what it actually means, original gangster. Me? Yeah. Anyway, I said, good group. What was good about that group? I thought it was the worst group I'd ever done in my life. And he said, I ain't never heard an adult apologize to a kid before. Bam, that was a good group. And he just walked away. And I was just like stunned. The one thing this kid complimented or saw that was worthwhile in everything I said is I apologize. And he taught me a lot, that I didn't have to walk around with a halo and behaving myself all the time in order to be of service. Taught me a lot. And then there's a little girl. My office for quite a while was on the edge of downtown Minneapolis, and there's just a beautiful park right outside my office. And I used to spend, when I have a break, I'd go walk around, and a bunch of volunteers kept care of all the gardens and the plants and so forth. And I would go around and check and see how they were doing. And I was walking up to this new garden space one day. And there was a mom that had a baby in a carriage, and then she had this And then this little, I don't know, 3 or 4-year-old girl was hopping in front of her, and the little girl had her fist clutching a bunch of flowers that she probably shouldn't have picked. But anyway, and then over off to the side, there was this probably homeless guy, because he had on, looked like pretty much everything he owned, and he was disheveled and messy, and he was just sitting there just slumped. And he just looked so just lost and bereft. And this little girl who had been hopping along stopped in her tracks, and she saw this guy, and she just stood there. And I stopped and I go, well, what's going on here? And she walked over to him, and she took her little fistful of flowers and she handed it to him. And this guy looked up, and he had tears running down his cheeks, and he took the flowers, and she reached over and she just patted him on the knee. She just ran back to her mom. And God bless her mom for letting her do that. And, really what that is, folks, is an example of who we are. She wasn't, she was just being herself. And that's who we are. That's who we came into the world being. That's who we are still. And that was just a description of a human being coming from who they are and doing the right thing and not making a big deal out of it. I got stories about people who have taught me what I was trying to teach them, that I could do that for hours. And I'm grateful to every one of them. And I'm grateful to all of the ones yesterday and today that keep teaching. I'm sorry about this. I don't have room sometimes for all the love I feel, so it spills. So thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Mavis.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mhm.
Okay, let's
Okay.
go to Amanda.
Amanda.
Hey everybody, can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, so my name's Amanda O'Shea and I'm zooming in from Spain. It's 10:30 at night here. So I'm originally from West London, from a big Irish family, and I've lived in Spain for 14 years, so that's home now. And it's an honor to be at this international conference. So I'm representing Europe and Spain and Ireland, and it's lovely just to have the mixture of all of our accents, and no matter how we sound, we're all saying the same thing, right? And in different wonderful ways, and I don't know, with our smiles and with our tears like Mavis, and our twinkling eyes and our colorful stories, and we're saying the same message, and you hear that word love popping up again and again. So what does the health of the helper mean to me? I think, like Sandra said, or Sandy said, there's, everything's been said really, but it is kind of where I'm at, not just in my mental health, but in my health in all its senses. And I can only give away what I got, and Danielle pointed to that earlier. And it's so true. And I just, sometimes I feel like I'm in that great place, and sometimes I'm not. And I'm all right also when I'm there, because I understand how that nonsense is created behind the scenes. So I don't always show up as my best self either. But I just feel like the depth of my understanding is really what I have to share with anybody and everybody. And so the only person that really needs to see this is me, you know, that's as the helper, or you. And then, you know, from that place, I think it just passes on, or we pass it on, pay it forward or whatever, you know, and it oozes out of us naturally. And I think that's what happens when we're in what we would call our innate health or our innate well-being, at our core essence, you know, and we are in our best self, that we are all natural helpers, like Omar referred to. And from that place, we are in service, you know, effortlessly and without gratitude. And so, talking about transformations, I remember I had, you know, one of my biggest, you know, moments that I remember in a Jack Pransky course many years ago, and had a massive insight as Jack was like pointing people to their back to wisdom and to their own wisdom. And I love that that's what we've been doing here for the last couple of days, each of us. And seeing that, you know, what we'd call that innate wisdom, it's not just in some of us, right? It's in all of us. And so I'm a big fan of Jack because he was my first contact with the three principal worlds. And I think we all seem to remember the story. Like we always seem to remember that when we first heard it. One of my favorite books from Jack is Modelo. And I think that story is probably close to a lot of hearts here, and including Beverly and others. And one of my favorite words is the word serendipity. And it's kind of serendipitously, if that is even a word, that I fell into the world of working in addiction and recovery. And so it wasn't a planned kind of conscious decision, but big, you know, long story short, I had a massive house fire whilst out coaching one day with a client, and my house was burning from the inside when I returned home. And life changed, and that just led me to a friend who owned a treatment center, just set up a treatment center, just offered me a job and said, why don't you come and work for me? And just, you know, things fell into place. The head of clinic had just left, and suddenly I found myself as being like head of clinic and admission manager at this very upmarket, swanky treatment center. And so it's quite a dramatic start, really, to you know, to my journey in the world of working in addiction recovery. But I think the world of addiction is quite dramatic, right? There's lots of drama and big stories, and lots of naughty boys and girls, and and there's lots of words to describe working in this field, but it's never boring, that's for sure. It's never boring. And so I had a real opportunity there, you know. I'd been around the understanding for maybe 4 or 5 years, and suddenly, yeah, there I was able to introduce the three principles into the daily program. And I met lots of, you know, really beautiful clients like Miguel, who you heard from yesterday, and lots of talented clients, and lots of wealthy clients, and who often had sort of more money than sense, and they certainly didn't have peace of mind, and they you know, they weren't always so happy. So I think somebody pointed that yesterday to how, you know, there's the happiness misunderstanding, and we know it doesn't come from material stuff and what we've got. But that was a real opportunity for me, and it was quite personal, I think, because the father of my children suffered with, you know, active addiction, and it's a huge gift for me to see people like Miguel and the others who kind of, you know, the kids get their daddy back, or they get their mum back, or seeing family members get their sons or daughters back in good health. So, you know, that was really, really always good to see. And there's something about you know, meeting people from this understanding where we get to see, everyone's pointed to it, that we're all the same underneath. And I've got this little, my daughter at Christmas bought me this little plaque. I don't know if you could see it. Can you see it properly? But it says, I am really, really, really like you. Right? So I am really, really, really like you. And I think, you know, that's because the design of our psychological system is universal, you know, and Sandy really beautifully kind of showed us that yesterday. And so I love that, you know, anybody that I meet or anybody that I work with in the world of recovery or addiction, or anyone that I meet in the world, you know, that they're no different to me underneath. And that at some point we're all looking for love and connection. And then sometimes we feel that love and connection, and then we forget that we're love and connection. And so we're looking for love and connection again. And there's just this pattern that repeats. And what I see is that when I, in the early days, when I was at the treatment center, I fell into a bit of a false belief. And that was only something that my own thinking had created. And that was that I had to kind of sneak the principles in, because, you know, it was I was the only person that worked there with this understanding. And I think, yeah, you know, it was pointed to earlier, like Kathleen pointed to earlier. I was constantly challenged by both staff and some clients, but mainly staff. And it wasn't always so easy, right, to be the kind of the lone guy. And I remember that sort of one day, something just spoke to me that, you know, if I can't stay here and share what it is that I want to share, then I don't know that I can really work here. And that's what I did. And I just, you know, suddenly sort of had this, I don't know whether it was a confidence or just something shifted. I was like, right, well, you know, this is what we're going to put on the program alongside everything else. I'm going to share what I'm going to share, and everybody else can share what they see to be true. And, you know, no one stopped me. I'd made that up, that I had to kind of sneak this in. And I spent time just leaving books around the place, and all the books that have been mentioned here today. I had one left in every suite. And that was really cool for me, that, you know, that I could just speak from my heart and speak what I knew to be true. And I really take my hat off to people who work in the field of addiction and recovery who do not have this understanding, because, you know, I think there's this belief that it's a stressful world and it's a stressful job, and that it's just normal to be stressed out when you work in this world. And I don't believe that to be true. You know, I think there's a real sense of I don't know, effortlessness when we have this. It's much easier for us to know that we don't have to, it's not our responsibility to make people see this and get this, but we're just really able to sort of nudge people. And when we're nudging people in the direction of truth, you know, that's not such a difficult job. It's not so hard to do that. So the way in which I worked, that's what I see, that this understanding was great for me, that I didn't have to see that I had to work so traditionally, you know. And I used to take my dogs in, and I used to invite people to come on a dog walk, and I've got a camper van, and as soon as people, you know, as long as people were out of detox and everything, they were invited to come out, and we'd have chats in the van or chats on dog walks. And, you know, I think that's where a lot of big clicks happened. Not in the one-to-ones and not in the workshops, but just that time we were having a little chat at breakfast, or, you know, that time that we just, I don't know, playing a game of cards after dinner. And so, and so that was really lovely. So it's, you know, really, I don't know, really, yeah, it's just beautiful to have been able to have this, had this opportunity. And I see that there's something about us coming from this space, like what we've all experienced, I think, here on this couple of days, that, you know, I felt this freedom to work from my lightness and work from my joy, and that I could use laughter and fun and color and music and you know, whatever was showing up for me in my workshops. And even when it, you know, even when it might have felt like the energy was low, or people were very sad, or there was a heavy kind of dark feeling, lots of big stories, but that's how I see it. It somewhere along the line, you know, it all got a little too serious for people, and they just kind of lost their way. And it makes sense for me that people reach out to make that feel a bit better. So I'm grateful. There's a real, you know, kind of gratitude that comes with that. So I'll just, yeah, I'll wrap it up there, I think. And, you know, this is an understanding that helps us navigate with ease and grace, and see things that beyond our wildest dreams. So yeah, stay in the conversation.
Thank you, Amanda.
Oh, Amanda. Yeah, thanks. Well, Amy, do we have questions, or should we,
Well, I wonder, what do you think, Joe? If do we want to take a break now and wrap up and do some questions at the very end just to stay on schedule, or should we do a few questions? We're a little bit behind schedule, but not too bad.
Well, what time? Right now it's 3:26.
Yeah,
So
we should be starting in 5
we're
minutes.
almost getting ready to have a break. So the break is next at 3:30.
Oh, it is. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
great.
we have, and that's from 3:30 to 3:45. So we've really got about 20 minutes. So
Okay.
we could take a couple of questions and then take about a 10-minute break. How does that sound?
Great.
Or comments?
I'll open up the chat bar here.
I do have one quick comment. I was just, as you guys were all talking, and I was just thinking about the health of the helper. When I was 26, I was working in the state of Texas, and with another woman, Jacqueline Small, we did a train the trainers retreats every few months. And the title of it was the health of the helper. Oh no, and she had written this book, Becoming Naturally Therapeutic. And she incorporated the research of Sidney Wolfe and Trex and Karkoff, and some of your psychologists would be familiar with those terms, but they studied counselors, and they watched the counselor videotape the counselors and looked at who were the most effective and what were the qualities of those counselors. And they came up with, empathy and the ability to be self-disclosing and to be able to relate and to be able to confront. And there were a whole list of about 10 of these traits. And so in my innocence and in her innocence, what we did, we had these retreats and we'd videotape everyone and have them demonstrate each and practice doing each of those traits. And when I think about it now and listen to all you great helpers, it just seemed like so ridiculous. But that was kind of the state of the art at that time. We were really cutting edge, that we thought that the state of mind of the counselor had something to do with their effectiveness. But the way we taught them was from the outside in, instead of seeing that they already had this innate capacity when they tapped into their resilience. So I just had a little chuckle with myself of, with the best of intentions, we made people really self-conscious about, am I being empathetic? Oh, I need to lean forward and touch them on the arm. Or, the certain way you cocked your head, and it was just ridiculous. But, those were in the dark ages 50 years ago, in the early part of my career. But isn't it great to know you already have everything you need inside and to do nothing? It's just amazing. That's my comment.
Yeah, when I was listening to the group, what was occurring to me was, I don't know how many of you know that that Sid, before he had his experience, he would describe himself as a very angry guy, and he was very into the union, because he was a pipe fitter and a welder and a union member, and he was very into it. And I remember him saying once, he said, back then I thought I was helping the world with my anger. And he said, I see now that I'm doing more for the world sitting in my living room with my dog in a beautiful feeling. And it's funny, it can't be that simple. But maybe it is. Maybe just being healthy yourself and happy and present and at peace and who you really are, maybe that's enough. Maybe that does more for the world than anything we can conjure up.
I think Christopher said that yesterday. I'm not sure if it was Christopher. Be the change you want to see in everybody.
It was Derek today.
Or
Yeah.
do. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's a question from Joan, and I see Jean has her hand up, so I'll open up Joan's mic. Go ahead, Joan.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me, Peter? Oh, good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, hello from the Northwoods of Wisconsin, and I'm so grateful to be here with you all. So inspiring. As a three principal, I guess, you know, I went to Salt Spring with my twin in 2015 and thought, you're paying how much for this? It's all about, you know, get the feeling, get the feeling. Where's the curriculum? Where's the dogma? And I was so impressed, though, that I went on to feel that feeling. And I'm here today to say thank you, especially Mavis. Oh my gosh. I always love your stories. But the humility of being, you know, my background is midwifery, you know, 100 babies of, you know, being blessed with this opportunity to see original face and to be of service. So I just say, you know, thank you, all of you, for gifting the planet, especially in the area of addiction, which is overthinking, habitual thinking, thank you, Greg, into a negative thought pattern to understand that we're all divine. We're all divine. So thank you. I don't know what more to say, but thank you.
Thank you, Joan.
Go ahead,
Can you
Jean.
hear me? Hi. Hi, yeah, just hearing what Joan had to say about we're all divine, and just a little bit of reflection on what happened to me, which I won't go into too much detail, but I had a very serious autoimmune illness. And I ended up with somebody who had a very serious heroin addiction at the same time. And he thought I was going to die, and I thought he was going to die. And we were both trying to fix each other. And at the time, I was like, oh my God, what's the point in getting well? Because I'm with a guy that's trying to kill himself every day. But in between all of that, there were some really beautiful moments. And I remember him saying it was like heaven and hell. And I remember one time, he was a Buddhist, and I remember one time him spending like £20 at the local supermarket buying so many loaves of bread that you could hardly carry them to go to feed the ducks and the swans on the lake, because it was all frozen over. And I was watching this really beautiful thing happen. And then I also realized as well, because I was so seriously ill that my family couldn't look after me. And my mum didn't know. In fact, I couldn't tell anybody that I'm going out with a heroin addict. Anyway, I remember my mum saying, this angel has arrived, because this guy turns up and he was a bit kind of obsessed with me, like you get obsessed with drugs. And it was kind of, in a sense, in retrospect, it was quite a good thing. And I sometimes say that methadone saved my life, because he was able to nurse me when nobody else could. But I remember at the time, I remember having this feeling that the medicine for me and for him, not methadone or anything like that, I remember thinking, what will heal me will heal him. And I didn't know how, but I remember thinking at the time, my illness or whatever is the same as his illness, except his isn't acceptable. And actually, after a while, mine wasn't acceptable. But I remember thinking, we will heal in the same way. And I'm only thinking of this in retrospect. And I didn't know anything about the principles at the time. And now I just feel that what we both needed to do was like feed the soul. And I really love what Amanda, as it said, about play and fun and joy. My ex was really playful, but my thought at the time was addicts are bad and unclean and disgusting and dangerous, but yet I saw that he really loved me, and he was trying to love me well in his way, and I was trying to love I was trying to not be, I kept thinking, look, just get yourself well, we're going to work this out. But it couldn't happen. But actually, looking back, I just see that we were just really lovely human souls that with divine timing gave each other something really beautiful, which was probably my life was saved, and his life in a way was saved, and hopefully we're still both on the planet. And now I have this really beautiful realization that it's only thought that separated us, me thinking that he was a bad lad, and him thinking she's never going to get well. And so I just wanted to say that because the medicine is the same.
Thank you, Jean. Do we have any more questions, Peter, or shall we move to a break?
I don't see any more questions.
Okay,
Barbara is wanting to get on for a minute. Barbara Smith.
Barbara wants to say something?
Yes.
I just wanted to say that if we were going to be gathering in person, Amanda was head of the fun committee. So I thought I'd throw that in. I was really looking forward to that. And so we'll just have to save that for another time, but that would have been a lot of fun. And I just wanted to say one other thing, which is to say that the best compliment I ever got in my entire career of spanning well over 40 years was I got a referral from a local geriatric psychiatric unit, and the social worker called me and said, I have a client who really wants to come and see you because one of the other clients said that she heard a lot of laughter coming out of your office. So I was like, send her along. So that was pretty cool. It's very attractive.
Okay, Amy, Joe, shall we?
Yep, I think we're good. What do you think, Joe? A 10-minute break, then we're pretty close to on schedule.
Take a 10-minute break, and then we're in for a real treat. We'll hear an introduction to Sydney Banks from Dr. Bill Pettit and Harry Dabritsky, and then get to watch a 30-minute video or so of Sydney Banks speaking to all of us as if he was here today. So Sid Banks is going to be our keynote speaker.